Hi everyone, this is your host Prasha and welcome to Her STEM Stories, episode number 53. Today's episode is brought to you by Amersui Clothing. I recently discovered them on Instagram and they make the cutest and most durable clothing for women scientists. Amersui Clothing garments are tailored and designed to look classy and are made of the softest, fire, chemical, and stain-resistant fabrics. They incorporate stretchy knit on the sides to make the clothes super comfortable. I actually got to try their Rosalind Franklin pants, and they were super comfortable. Amersui is definitely a must-have for professional women in the lab, and I highly recommend them. Right now, they're offering our listeners 15% off of any order with the coupon code HERSTEM15. Go to amersuiclothing.com right now to find your next lab power outfit and get 15% off your purchase. That is Amersui Clothing with the code HERSTEM15. You can find the link in the episode notes. Also, we interviewed Bo, who is the founder of Amersui Clothing, last week. So if you're just joining us, go back and listen to her amazing STEM story. This week and next week, we are celebrating Moms in STEM, and we're bringing to you some interesting stories about how women are maneuvering very challenging and demanding STEM careers, shining in them, and also raising a family. So these two episodes, I hope, can teach you that you can have it all and some more. So keep listening.
Welcome to Her STEM Story, a podcast about real women with extraordinary science, technology, engineering, and mathematics stories. In this show, we'll talk to some absolutely inspiring women and highlight some women-led organizations in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We'll learn more about their work, their struggles, and how they think we can close the gender gap in STEM professions. Keep listening to get inspired.
Motherhood is one of the most precious things about being a woman. Media has time and again let us down with terrible portrayals of successful women who have to choose between their careers and their families. Also, the mother's guilt is largely fueled by these stories that are continuously bombarded on us through media. Life for a mother in STEM comes with its own set of challenges. And as someone who wants to have kids and a successful career in STEM myself, I am very curious to learn how women are maneuvering this tricky path. So to celebrate Mother's Day, I decided to interview some amazing mothers in STEM. So our very first guest was born in Portugal, and Raquel Nuno and her family moved to the US when she was 11. Raquel was always interested in science, but life had other plans, and she joined the US Air Force. She supported her family when her father fell sick, and after the Air Force, found her way back into STEM through community colleges in LA. Today, she's working on her PhD in Planetary Geology at UCLA and is working on NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter mission. She has two sons, and both were born during her grad school years. Let's talk to Raquel to learn more about her incredible STEM story. Hi, Raquel. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm doing well.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is such a treat.
So just to get started, I'm very interested. What is planetary geology?
Okay, yeah. So planetary geology is the field of study of geology, but not just of our own planet, but other planets as well. And not just planets, but moons. So we call them planetary bodies. Mm-hmm. So you can study Mercury, or you can study like Jupiter or Saturn, or even the Earth. You can be a planetary scientist, but looking at the Earth in the context of how can we learn about how the solar system formed and how did the other planets form by studying the Earth.
That's awesome. So you can't go on these planets, obviously. So how do you study their geography?
So there's different ways you can do it. One is you send spacecraft there with different instruments that look at the different properties of these planets. There's lots of cameras, spectrometers, even things that look at the temperature of the surface, because that can tell us a lot about the planetary body. And then we also send rovers like we do on Mars.
Nice.
We've also sent rovers to the moon, and hopefully that'll continue so we can learn more about the moon. Mm-hmm. You can also use telescopes, so you can be an astronomer who's a planetary scientist, but you use telescopes here on Earth to look at these planetary bodies. So I study asteroids. You often do that with telescopes. Mm-hmm. And then another way that people go about studying these other planetary bodies is actually by studying the Earth, like I mentioned earlier. So as an analog for what is happening out in other planets. So planetary geology and planetary science is the study of the solar system. So our local environment here in the universe.
Oh, interesting. So how is that different from an astrophysicist or something like that, who also study the planetary bodies,
Yeah, a lot of astronomers and astrophysicists, they look at the bigger things in the universe. So they'll study galaxies. They also study galaxies and black holes and quasars and all the bigger kind of stuff. That's usually what an astronomer or an astrophysicist studies.
Okay, awesome. So, and I asked this, of course, I know, the whole importance of this, but I also want to ask you from your point of view, why is it important to study the planetary geology?
It's a question that I often think about, because sometimes I think, well, I could be studying something else. I could be trying to cure cancer, or I could be trying to solve world hunger issues, which are really important. But we are part of this world. We are part of this solar system. We are part of this universe. And there's something really very human about trying to understand our world and our place in it. Our place in the universe it's a very human thing to do. And my passion is in space. It is in trying to understand how the solar system formed, how the Earth formed, how the moon formed. And I think that my talents and my passion is definitely better suited for space than biology. It's just a personal interest of mine. And so for me it's the importance is in understanding where we fit in this place, in this place that we called Earth, and how did life come to be? That's what
I think it's basic human curiosity.
That's right. Yeah.
to just find out why we're here, and if the other planets are out there, what is so special about us that our planet has life and others don't. That's another way of looking at it. And nowadays, with the opening of private sector companies coming into space exploration, the future is just phenomenal. I think we'll be on Mars very soon. So that kind of brings me to your work at NASA. So NASA, okay, full disclosure, I think NASA is probably I grew up watching everything about NASA, so my eyes become so big when I talk about NASA, and the fact that someone really works there, I'm having a fangirl moment right now. So I'm very interested in your work in NASA. Tell me a little bit about that.
So I actually started working at NASA as an intern. I was finishing up my sophomore year at community college, and my community college had this really cool program where usually students from community colleges don't get a chance to intern at NASA. Yeah. So my community college, which was Los Angeles, LA City College, had this program that allowed students to go intern at NASA, which was really amazing. So I applied and I got in. And it was actually there that I realized that there was this whole field of planetary geology. I actually didn't know it existed. I thought, it's just an astronomer. If you want to study space, you're an astronomer. Yeah. But then it was actually there at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory where they're building these rovers, they're building these spacecraft to go to these other worlds, that I realized, there's this whole other world that I didn't know existed. The people who are sending these spacecraft, you have the engineers who are building them, but then the scientists who are putting these missions together, they're planetary scientists. A lot of them are actually geologists, which was something I had no idea about.
Yeah.
So that was at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and it was really that experience that pretty much has determined the rest of my life. We've had papers published from that work, and what I was looking at was I was looking at the magnetic fields of Jupiter, and and what we could learn about the physics of these. So there's the sun is always spewing out this, what we call solar wind, these highly charged particles, and then they interact with different magnetic fields. And we were trying to understand how these interactions happened. So we're learning fundamental physics about these particles. And then now once I finished my undergrad, it was that experience that allowed me to get into grad school. And now I'm part of NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter mission. And so what that mission is, it's a spacecraft that's orbiting the moon. And it's looking at different properties of the moon, like the temperature. It's looking at pictures, looking at how much volatiles could potentially be on the surface. So like water ices and things that evaporate quickly or sublimate. And it's just been absolutely incredible. The thing about working on missions with NASA, it's highly interdisciplinary. You have people who are geologists, you have physicists, you have engineers, you have like atmospheric scientists. There's so many different fields that have to come together to. It's literally thousands of people coming together and doing this incredible thing. And to me, that's really the most exciting thing. It's the team aspect of it. It's not one lone scientist who comes up with all these genius ideas. It's a team of people who are really passionate, who are extremely curious, and work together to do something really incredible. And there's something so powerful for me. It tells me something about it gives me hope about the future of humanity to see people come together for a shared purpose. And that's what NASA's missions mean to me. It's a place where people who are really passionate about space and space exploration come together to develop these incredible missions to do incredible science.
And that's such a nice such a nice way of putting it, because also what you just shared about being from community college and getting this opportunity. I feel like more employers like NASA need to come back to community colleges and help people see the world of NASA, but also just see what the possibilities are. Because a lot of times we, community colleges share a very similar reputation as women in STEM do, right? So, people are not given, equal opportunities, or just because you didn't go to a big school, you may not get those opportunities. So I love, that part of your story, which is such a great thing for all our friends in community colleges.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I know there's, at least when I went to community college, there was definitely this stigma about students in community college. Oh, you just couldn't cut it at regular college, so you went to community college. But when I was actually in there, some of the best professors I've ever had were at community college. They really cared about the students. They really cared about us learning. And the other students that were there, they were so driven, so motivated. It's usually people who can't afford to go to a 4-year college. So they are more driven than a lot of, once I've been transferred to a 4-year university, I saw people skipping classes, and it just blew my mind. I'm like, you're paying to be here. This is such an incredible, rare opportunity that you have. It would just blow my mind that people would skip class. But I didn't see that happening at community college. People were there every day. They were studying really hard. So some of the best professors and some of the best students that I've ever met in my career have been at community college. And I am so privileged that I got a chance to be part of the community college world, because it definitely changed me, and it gave me the opportunities that I have now. So I hope that it's changing, that negative stigma about community college. I hope it changes. Yeah,
I hope so too. And we do, at Her STEM Story, we do a lot of work with our local community colleges in Western Massachusetts. And, we try to work with them and also, kind of give them anything that we can to help them spread their message. So community colleges are special to our show as well, because a lot of our supporters are from community colleges, and I see so much hope in those students, and the teachers are just, as you mentioned, phenomenal. Just phenomenal, so engaged. They know everyone's name. They know exactly what these kids do. They know exactly their talents are, and these teachers are pushing really hard for more opportunities for them. So I'm so glad to hear your story align with that as well.
Yeah, and I'm not the only one. A lot of the people that I went to school with, they went on to, a lot of them actually came to UCLA with me, and they were the best students in the class, it seemed like.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, you also served in the Air Force, and, we haven't even gotten to the actual part of the story where you're a mom in STEM, but I really need to ask you this question too. So tell us, how did you you found your way back into science after spending some time with the Air Force, and I'm sure that transition must have been an interesting one. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so after I graduated high school, so my father was really ill. He had terminal cancer. We knew he was going to pass away. He couldn't work anymore. And I'm an only child. And my parents at the time, they weren't citizens. So my dad couldn't get Medicaid yet, or Medicare. So because he wasn't working, he didn't make enough money. So he couldn't afford health care, but he couldn't get Medicaid at that time because he wasn't a citizen. I don't know if it's changed now. This was many years ago. And so I had to do something. So I just graduated high school. What was I going to do there? I didn't have that many skills. So I decided to join the Air Force. And it was difficult having to make that choice, in the sense that I felt like I should go to college. That's the implication. That's the reason my parents came to the United States, is so that I could have the opportunity to graduate from a good high school and then go to a good college. And then having to make the choice to not go was very difficult, because part of me felt like I was disappointing them. But it was the only thing that I could do to help my family financially. And it was great for that. And while in the military, my father ended up passing away, but I was able to be there for him. I was able to be there financially and emotionally. I was able to provide for his end-of-life care. And actually, having been in the military, because I made what's called the dependent of mine, all of his health care was paid for by the military, which was really great. And so he didn't have to suffer when he was at the end of life.
Yeah. No, that's...
And... yeah, and I still look back on that time and that sacrifice that I made as one of the best thing that I've done. One of the best things that I've done was to make that choice to, I don't want to say I give up my life, because I didn't give up. My life is still going on. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit later than everyone else, but I'm still doing it. But the fact that I was able to do that for him brings me great joy and great pride in having been there for him in that way. Yeah. So I was in there for 4 years, and so I had not taken any science or math classes in 4 years. So when I got out, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I don't remember how to do any of this math or science. So I kind of just wandered around from job to job, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And then I decided, you know what, Raquel, you're not going to let fear dictate your future. So let's try something. So I joined the local community college, and I just started taking just math classes. And I started from the beginning. The lowest class, when you take the test, I scored really low. And so they put me in the most intro math class that they had. And I just worked up from there, and I was doing really well. And I think part of that was because I was so driven and so passionate about it, that it really help me focus on the work and do the work to get better at it. Yeah. And so those small victories, in a way, just instilled in me a sense of confidence that, yeah, I could do this. I can go study science. And that's how I found my way back into science. After having many years of being afraid of taking a science class, I decided, nah, you can't. It's the things that you regret later on in life. It's that you don't do. The things that you regret are the things you don't do later on in life. And I didn't want to have that for myself.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing story. And, I personally love pivots, and I love transitions because, they make us, as you said, they make life worth it. They also make us stronger. And, that's something that someone who is just starting out may not realize, that if things don't work out, that doesn't mean anything. Like, you can always start again. And if you just follow what really brings you joy, you can do anything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that I struggled with. I was thinking, oh, you've missed out. Yeah. You've missed out on your time. You've missed out on the time to go to college. Now you're too old. But it's not. Everybody's on a different timeline. And I wish that more people knew that, because a lot of people feel like failures if they haven't done a certain thing by a certain age. Yeah. But there is no timeline. Everybody has a different timeline, and you got to do what works for you. And if it's right now, you're not feeling it, maybe in a couple years, it will just fall into place.
Yes, definitely. And once you get over that fear, you can finally experience flow, which means, as you said, everything will fall in place, everything will feel right. It's just, getting over that fear part, which is the hardest.
That's right.
Yeah. So,
it is the hardest.
Getting back to our Mother's Day special, your story is amazing. You had both your kids while still in grad school. So, what was it like to have kids while you were going to school?
It was scary. I was afraid what that meant for my career. Yeah. Of course, I wanted it to work, and I had a bad experience where my advisor was very supportive. When I told my advisor, and he gave me a big hug, he's like, "That's great. I'm so happy for you." So I have a very, very supportive advisor. But then I went to a committee member of mine, somebody that I highly respected, both professionally, scientifically, and personally. I really looked up to him, and I told him, "Hey, I'm pregnant," hoping to get, "Hey, you can do this." And he turned to me and he said, "Oh, so I guess you're done with science then." And it really, it was, I just thinking back on it, it was just like somebody shot me in the gut. It was just such a feeling of disappointment in myself. And that was the worst part. I felt like, oh my God, what did you do? This is a terrible mistake. And I hated that I felt that way after he told me that. I think that he was coming from, he was worried about me. He was very supportive of my science career, and he was afraid that being pregnant was going to mean that I was going to quit. And I think that he was afraid of that. But the way he said it was just, "Oh, so you're done. You're done. You can't be a good scientist if you're not sleeping." And he actually told me that. I ended up dropping him from my committee because I didn't want somebody who had that bias towards me on my committee. So that was difficult. And then once the baby was born, figuring out, okay, childcare, what am I going to do with the baby while I'm in grad school? And again, my advisor was so kind. He's like, "Just bring the baby in. You can just have him in the office." That's awesome. It was really awesome. But I think the biggest challenge has been time management. I think I'm a procrastinator by nature. It's something I delay things, but I can't anymore because I don't have the time. When I go home, I have to cook and I have to do bedtime, and I don't have time to just sit around and think and work at night. It's nighttime is family time. And then and then same thing in the morning, waking up early to do work. Well, my kids are up early. So now I really have to do all the work that I have to do within a set time after I drop the kids off at daycare and then before I pick them up from daycare. And it's been a challenge, but honestly, I feel like I'm the most productive now that I've ever been because I don't have the luxury of time.
Yeah. And guess what? A lot of moms who've been on the show have told me the same thing. So that's a common theme there, right?
And there was a hard thing that was when I did come back, and I was breastfeeding. I made the decision to breastfeed, and I was told by the department, they kept telling, "Oh, don't worry, we'll have a place for you to breastfeed and to pump." So I needed a place to pump. Well, they said, "We'll give you a private room. No worries, no worries." When I finally came back from maternity leave, I went down to the main office and I told the lady who was handling this, oh, I'm back. I need a place to go pump. And she's like, "Oh, we haven't quite found the place yet, but here, let me show you this place." And she proceeds to take me to a bathroom, a single person bathroom. She's like, here, there's an outlet and it's private. And I'm like, oh, no. I will not, I will not pump in a bathroom. No, you don't eat in a bathroom. My children are not going to get their food from a bathroom.
Yeah.
So it was kind of baffling to me that the department didn't have any systems in place to support new moms. But all of that's changed. Now we have our own room where moms can go and pump, and it has a fridge and it has a comfy couch. Aww. So I think that, I don't know if the department has never had grad students with babies, or they just didn't complain enough, but I was not having it. I'm like, no, this needs to happen. Yeah. And I know I'm not the only one who uses it. There's other people in the department now that uses it. So yeah, I'm glad that we have that support now.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the stuff, as you mentioned, some of it was done because, a lot of men used to work and women stayed at home, and, things kind of changed the past few decades. And when, sometimes women really never raised their voice, and, that's kind of changing now. So, even employers and schools and stuff are understanding that this is the right way to do things, and which is refreshing to see. Especially you probably saw the whole transition, from not having one to actually having one is, it's a great sign of inclusivity. And I think people want to work at places where their basic human needs are respected, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's a big issue in the leaky pipeline, which I'm sure you've dealt with, and you know all about it. And I'm sure your listeners know about it too, is not having that support system and feeling like you can't speak up to tell your employer and to tell your department, hey, this is what I need to be a good scientist and to be a good mom. Please help me in achieving this. And you're right. I think things are changing. I think the environment women are becoming a lot more empowered to speak up and say, hey, I need this. And employers are a lot more open now to change, which they should be, because if you want to have a good, healthy, inclusive workplace, you need to support everyone, not just one type of person. You need everyone.
Yeah, and I think social media has some role to play, because you don't want to go viral and for all the wrong reasons, right? Someone's going to take a picture and that's that. So, while we're on the topic, like, what do you think there's one thing that STEM employers or schools or even PIs can do to help new mothers? Like, what is that one thing, maybe, in your opinion?
So I think, in my opinion, I think one thing that could really change the dynamic is to foster a culture of open communication. So not having your employees feel like they can go and talk to you without fear of repercussion. Fostering the culture where if somebody needs something, they can go and ask you. You might say no, but that they can ask, like they have, that they will be heard and they won't be dismissed. And I think the importance of that is new mothers have different needs. Some mothers are not breastfeeding, and that's fine. And so they might not need a quiet place to pump. Some mothers are comfortable taking on lots of new projects, and other new mothers are not, because they have maybe they have a fussy baby, and they stay up all night with the baby, and they can't take on as many things as they did before. So really, truly asking, what do the mothers need, and thinking about what new mothers need, and not just assuming you know what they need. Truly communicate with the new mom what it is that they need to feel supported, because it's going to be so different for every mom. They're going to have different priorities. They're going to have different needs. But if you foster that that culture of open communication, you can, I feel like a lot of issues stem from lack of communication. And so I think open communication and making people feel like they will be listened to is probably the most important thing that an employer or a department or anyone can do for anyone in that case, but definitely for new moms who have very different needs.
Yeah, I think approachability and just having that rapport and not being shy of asking, hey, how are you feeling? What can I do? I feel like a lot of time male counterparts or even females can get a little bit, I don't know, what if I say something wrong?
Right,
And,
right.
it's always like, I think sometimes too, maybe I wouldn't be the best person to talk to someone, if they just had a kid, I don't know what to say, and I think in that situation, I feel like that's the reason, we do what we do is to spread this, message, but also organizations need to have an open conversation about inclusivity in general, and kind of trying to have that open dialogue. So now reversing the question, what is it that new moms can do to also make this transition easier when they come back from maternity leave, which, by the way, is very bad in the US. I mean, I can't believe they expect people to come back after 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Here at my school is it's 6 weeks of pay, half-time pay.
Oh.
And honestly, that's better than a lot of places in the United States. So
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we have an Italian employer now, and I mean, they bought our corporation and they saw the US federal requirements and stuff, and they were in shock. Like, they were like, what? Like, that's inhuman. Like, that's not even that's not even okay. But we can go digress about it all day. But yeah, what can new moms do better?
Well, one thing that I found really useful as a student here at UCLA is there's a student resource center. I don't exactly know the name of it, but there turns out to be lots of grad students with kids. You just don't hear about each other. There's lots of people in academia with kids. You just don't really hear about them. And so this place was a way to connect with other parents who are going through the same thing. And I think that the best thing you can do is, because I didn't know anything about motherhood. We're the first in our friends to have kids. So there was no real support system. So meeting other parents, meeting other students, because they're out there. There's other students with kids. Yeah. There's colleagues with kids, and then that way you can share babysitters. Maybe you can exchange things, clothes, or things that their older kids are not using anymore, toys, and maybe you can take some of them. So to me, that was a very useful thing to have, is connecting with other parents who are in the same situation that I was, because it didn't make me feel as alone, because it's so easy to feel isolated when you're especially a new mom. It's a very isolating time in your life, and you do have to put yourself out there. And I'm an introvert. It's very hard for me to put myself out there. But knowing from my sanity, I needed it to talk to other parents who knew what I was going through. My friends were great, but they don't know what it's like to be up all night with a baby who is not latching on to your breast to breastfeed. So I think the best thing you can do is to connect with other parents, other new parents. And if you're at a university, there's going to be other ones like that. And going to the Student Resource Center, whatever that's called at your university, is the place to do that at.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think you're doing some of that part through Instagram, where you share your life as a space geologist. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I wanted to, I love talking about science, and I wanted an outlet. A lot of my friends didn't know what I was doing. A lot of my family doesn't quite understand what I was doing. So I figured, hey, you know what? Maybe I could use this platform to share it with them. And I think people really resonated with it, with the idea that, oh, look, here's a scientist, and she's also sharing her personal life. And I think that it makes people really relatable. And there's lots of Instagram accounts that do that, and moms and just scientists who are not moms, but they also have regular lives outside of science. So I have a lot of fun with that. I love talking to people. People love space, so it's easy. It's an easy thing for people to get excited about. But then to talk about that, you can be a mom, you can be a grad student, and you can be a scientist. A scientist isn't this just one thing. You can be so many. It's just one facet of your life. It's not everything of your life.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you've built a huge community on Instagram. And it's thank you to you and people like yourself who are sharing this side of STEM and, actively breaking stereotypes, but also enlightening us with a lot of science. A lot of science and facts in general, which I think are so much needed because there's so much wrong information on the internet that, someone has to do the cleanup.
Yep. And I'm lucky also that my husband, he does science communication for a living. So
that's awesome.
I learn a lot from him and I do help him with his stuff as well. But it's really exciting. I love the science communication side of science.
That's incredible. So again, before we let you go, I mean, your story is awesome. And, I'm sure if we keep talking, we'll keep discovering new layers and a lot of great information about just how to maneuver STEM through, as being a mother, and then also like just about planetary geology, which is such an interesting topic itself. So, before we let you go, I have two more questions for you. First one is, what's your favorite book?
Okay, so I'm a big fan of sci-fi. Mm-hmm. And I love the moon. So one of my favorite books is called Seven Eves by Neil Stephenson. So it's a sci-fi story. I'm not giving anything away, but the first thing that happens, in the first page of the book is the moon explodes.
Oh.
And so then it's a story over 5,000 year story of what happens to humanity after that event happens. And it's a really, really, really wonderful sci-fi story.
Oh, that's awesome. And before we let you go, I want to know, what would be that one thing that you would want to leave our listeners with?
The one thing that I wish that I'd known was that everybody is on a different timeline. There is, I don't know how to say this in like a very eloquent way.
That's okay.
Don't compare your timeline with somebody else's timeline because everybody is different. People reach their levels of potential, the highest potential at very different times for many different reasons. It's not because that you can't, it's not because you're not smart. It's not because of this or that. There's different circumstances in everybody's lives that are going to lead you to get to a place at a very different time that it's going to lead somebody else.
Yes.
So don't compare timelines with other people. That is, I think a lot of people can get so bogged down, and I see it all the time. A lot of my colleagues, the younger students are like, oh, I'm already 26 and I don't have this and I don't have that. And like, no. This is just bringing you more stress. Do not worry about the time. You will get there when you will get there. Yeah. And that's okay.
That's awesome. Again, thank you so much for doing all the work that you do and for being on our show and for being such an amazing role model for everyone, but also for your two sons. I think they're going to grow up to not only, spread equality, but also to be role models for other men.
Oh. Thank you so much for saying that. And thank you so much for having me and for having this podcast. I think it's so important and so powerful for other people to be able to hear different people's stories because everybody's so different and just hearing all the ways that you can be is really powerful. So thank you for what you do.
And that was Raquel with her incredible STEM story. Please use the links in the episode notes to follow Raquel and her amazing STEM journey. If you like our show, please leave us a review on iTunes. If you leave us a review, we will read it on the episode and we'll give you a shout out. So thank you in advance. We need your reviews. We need to know how we're doing, and that will be super helpful. Next week, we are chatting with Lindsay, who is also a mom in STEM and has pivoted a lot in her life. Her journey is nothing less than a movie. I mean, it's so interesting and inspiring, and it has so much to take away. And she talks really openly about her mental health struggles as well. So make sure you tune in next week. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.